Hi, everybody. This is David P. France, and I'm coming to you live from Basel, Switzerland. Before we get started, for all the people out there, we haven't been around for a while. We've been out of commission for a couple of months, but we're back. If you happen to be watching the video, like the video, share the video with your friends and family, subscribe to our YouTube or BitChute channel. This is David P. France TV. And we are a platform for creators and creative people, artists, inventors, thought leaders, small business owners, and entrepreneurs. And today, or tonight, my time, but today, in Henning's time, I have Henning Rübsam with me. And this is, Henning, this has been your, I think, third or fourth interview with, each time we have great conversation involving dance and choreography. Henning is a choreographer. He's based in New York, but I'm going to ask you briefly to go through your background, since we haven't been talking with one another for a while, and we may have some new viewers that may need your introduction and a little bit of background in order for them to know what you're up to.
Great. Well, thank you very much for having me on as the first person after the hiatus. So it's great to be here again and seeing you and catching up. Well, and I guess, we can only do eight interviews because dancers can only count up to 8, right?
I see.
So, right. So I'm a choreographer and dancer, and I am from Germany originally. And after finishing high school and having trained at the Hamburg Opera Ballet School, I moved to New York to attend Juilliard. And after I got my degree from there, I danced with a couple of the big companies in New York, including, well, I toured with the Lamone company, but I then was a member of the Alwyn Nicolai Murray Lewis company. And well, decided to, because I really wanted to choreograph as well as dance, to found my own company, Sense Dance. And we're celebrating 30 years next season. And since I have a very strong interest in history, dance history, I have been teaching dance history for the last 15 years, and it's a wonderful outlet for me to talk about the art. And I've been writing about dance as well. So some criticism, some philosophy. Yeah. So it's great, to be in the studio. It can sometimes get a little lonely as a choreographer, and to have an outlet to actually speak to people about what I'm doing or what I think is important in the world of dance. So I enjoy being in front of a classroom once in a while, not too often. I feel like I need to create that balance between being creative and being a scholar. Let's just put it that way.
Mm-hmm. That's very interesting. And the last time we spoke, you were about to teach a class, as I recall. And it was on, I think it was on West Side Story, or it was some other, it was like a 2-parter. What was that course? You remember?
That was, it was called West Side Story Dance Festival. And we had a dance part for 2 days and a music part for 2 days. And I taught the dance section of it. And we had wonderful Amar Ramazar, who is in the Broadway revival of the show, talk about his experience in the new, in that new creation of it. And then I provided the history of the original production and, the background on Jerome Robbins and such. So I felt it was a good experience, despite, it being on Zoom. I mean, I'm not too fond of this new medium. I love being in front of a classroom and actually demonstrate. When I talk about something rather than sit in front of a camera. You know, for me to be able to walk around a classroom and demonstrate what a tilt is, or a contraction, or, you know, the difference between a entrechacat and just a regular changement, or, you know, these things that, I mean, I'm not too physical that I hopefully don't get injured, but things like that, if you are a dancer choreographer and you can get your students to actually see without the use of a video, you know, what you're talking about, or make people get up in class and say, you know, everybody who feels comfortable, you know, try this, and you do a contraction or whatever you're talking about, but that you get people involved and not just sitting in a chair or in front of their cameras, or worst of all, having their cameras turned off and you're speaking into the void. So I love live teaching, and you can read a room and have a discussion much better than, you know, this one-on-one thing with you. That's beautiful to have that an interview format.
Right.
But teaching a class, you know, of course I have colleagues who just love it and who learn so much from it. Well, I'm not one of them. I love the live interaction.
Yeah. Look, I hear you. I mean, we are now what month is this? This so-called health crisis happened when, in March of 2020, around March.
That's when it really hit. Yeah, that's when New York shut down, mid-March of 2020.
So we're going into a year and a half.
Yeah, we are.
Right.
Well, and the beautiful thing is that New York is opening up, and that the class that I'm offering now, which I guess is going to be the subject of our interview, is a live in-person class. It's not on Zoom. It is, thankfully, you know, that I will have that live interaction, and I really look forward to being back in the classroom. So
well, tell us about the class. I mean, you and I have been going back and forth probably over the last 2 days about the concept. I'm excited about the concept, and I will tell the audience, you and the audience later, but I'm going to allow you to present.
Thank you.
The idea and the subject matter behind the class.
So it's iconic dance partnerships. And of course, when that comes to mind, you know, you think of Ginger Rogers and Fred Astaire, and of course, these wonderful couples like Rudolf Nureyev and Margot Fonteyn that everybody recognizes as iconic will be part of the class, and you will learn more about them. But I feel that as a choreographer and dancer, that partnerships have informed me as a person and dancer, you know, because today, September 5th, when we are having now this interview, and it happens to be John Cage's 109th birthday. So I watched a little clip of Merce Cunningham talking about John Cage, talking about an iconic partnership in the arts. And he said, you know, John Cage was talking to one of the piano teachers who, and he said, oh, you played that piece perfectly. Now try it with some wrong notes. So in other words, you know, of course, John Cage did not want the piano teacher to play it with wrong notes. He wanted him to take and then Merce make this movement with the hands, risk. And so, and if you witness that in a partnership, that somebody, that your partner is about taking risk and wants other people to take risks, you know, what a wonderful thing to see in your partner, so that you can trust taking risk as well, and that your partner will be there for you when you take risk. So a wonderful partnership like the one of Cage and Cunningham, you know, if risk is part of it, what a wonderful base for a relationship. And I mentioned Alvin Nicolai and Murray Lewis, of course. They were a choreographic team. And although they might not have collaborated as choreographers much, each one had their own company. Eventually, the company got combined. First, Murray was a dancer of Alvin Nicolai, but they had a love relationship that informed their creativity, and they formulated a movement philosophy, or let's say Alvin Nicolai formulated the movement philosophy with the help of Murray. But these are wonderful creative minds that I think pushed one another. And I mean, with all the pushing, you know, there has to be an establishment of trust, of course. And if that happens to be between a composer and a choreographer, like with Cage and Cunningham, or with two choreographers, like with Nick and Murray, you know, each relationship is a different one. And then you have the pure dance partnerships. And
let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question, because maybe some of the people that are watching the video don't necessarily know the people that you've just mentioned, right? So let's say, for example, I know nothing about dance, modern dance, choreography, and I walk into your class, and what would you be able to, how do you say, how would you describe these couples, the two that you just talked about, in a short, concise manner, so that someone that would leave the class would understand, okay, from now on, I have these people in my mind, I know where their places in history, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, and of course, that is a danger, you know, if you are offering a course, like sort of for connoisseurs, you know, with a very special topic, that you might talk over some people's heads. So thank you very much for stopping me here in my tracks to scale it back a little bit. I appreciate that. So Merce Cunningham is one of the great abstract choreographers, meaning that there is not a story involved, you know, in the dance. The dance can simply be about time, about an exploration of movement itself. And John Cage is one of the great 20th century composers, and the two of them happen to be a couple. So Alvin Nicolai, he is the other great abstract choreographer. So that I just picked two abstract choreographers is not is purely chance. And of course, chance is a tool that is used in abstract choreography. So by rolling the dice, you know, which movement phrase comes next. So it is one tool of how to create choreography. So Alvin Nicolai was this this genius who created not just movement, but also sound. He was the first person in the US to have a Moog synthesizer, and he created loops of sound. So he was choreographer and composer and lighting designer. It was basically his invention, you know, to have the side booms at the on the stage to give a more sculpted quality to the dancers, and have the dancers not just lit like actors for the faces, but you needed the lights of the trees, those trees that are called booms in the wings. You needed them, you know, stacked from top to bottom, so that you can really sculpt the beauty of a dancer on stage. So Merce Cunningham on one side and Alvin Nikolai on the other. Those were two great choreographers, and with their relationships with Nikolai, with Murray Lewis, and with Merce Cunningham and his relationship with John Cage, those were very fruitful and volatile relationships that are that really influenced American art.
Yeah. And you knew about all of these say leaders in the field. You knew about them before moving to America. I mean, like, what influenced you about these examples or these leaders in dance? I mean, I think it's something that if you're interested in dance, you learn it on your own somewhat, and then other people teach you, or just being in the culture of dance, you pick it up about who's important and so on. How did this come about?
Well, I've always been interested in history. I had good history teachers in school. Did they know about dance history? Oh no, absolutely not. So, but while a student in Germany, the studio owner where I first learned, she had Dance Magazine. Every month, the copy of Dance Magazine. In a way, that is how I learned English. So if my English is not perfect, blame it on Dance Magazine, right? But I mean, to see, one month's Margie Gillis, a Canadian choreographer, on the cover, and the next month's Chita Rivera. And here is this little boy in Germany, and it completely opened my mind that there is a world out there that I didn't know in Germany. And so, of course, I learned about Alvin Nikolai and about Merce Cunningham. And then when I was a student at the Hamburg Opera Ballet School, the Lamone Company, Jose Lamone Company, came and performed at the Hamburg Opera House. Oh, how wonderful. I want to do that, right? Rather than just doing ballet and being behind a ballerina, lifting and whatnot, and getting my little 30-second long variations, or having to be part of a corps. I mean, to express human emotion as a modern dancer. So, and I'm bringing up the Lamone Company because one of his inspirations, well, is it a dance partnership? But there's a choreographer and an inspiration, again, a male inspiration, Lucas Hoving. And Lucas Hoving, just to close the circle there, shares a birthday with John Cage. So it's his birthday today as well. So, I mean, here is the history mind going, right? And, but then, my first real exposure to Merce Cunningham came at a film festival in Hamburg when I was 17. I didn't understand these little films. It was very strange to me. And when I came to New York, of course, Merce was still alive and very active. I went to the studio. I had downtown at Westbeth, which is now the home of the Martha Graham Company. And to move and to just have to be concerned with the clarity of movement, where your limbs are directed in space without having to be expressive, was a wonderful experiment. During the week, I was at Juilliard as a student and was in a piece by Anna Sokolow about the Holocaust. It was emotionally draining. So Saturday morning, it was like a meditation, being in Merce's class and just having to be exact, well, not just, but it's a completely different approach. Mm-hmm. And that both approaches of being emotionally present in and expressive with your every fingertip in Anna's work, or being exact and holding a balance a little longer, you know, to have that sense of complete physicality in Merce's work. And then when I was a member of Alvin Nicolai Murray-Lewis, to have that sense of locomotion and that pure physicality, it's incredibly liberating. So I think I was just very lucky to be exposed to so many techniques and philosophies, and that I searched that out. And I think that informs me as a choreographer. I think it informs my writing and informs my teaching.
Yeah. So let's say, to go back to the subject of teamwork and teamwork within dance, let's say, did you see these artists as a team, or did you see the dancer first, right, and then learn later about sort of how the dancer or choreographer was able to do the work, right? So it's almost like what comes first, the chicken or the egg? How did you see these unique leaders in dance, the ones at least that were out in front, right? Because sometimes, in other words, I'll tell you from my perspective, I don't necessarily see them all as pairs, but I do see the work of a dance company as a team or as a group, right? And I also know, let's say there are a lot of people who are behind the scenes that are really responsible, have a great responsibility for the work that we see, but we don't necessarily know who they are. So I guess my question is to you, as you started to learn more about dance, did you see these leaders as part of a team of, or a duo or a couple, or did you see the work first and then start to navigate by research?
I think now I have a much better understanding of how Nick and Murray worked, for example, by running my own dance company, you know, to see all that is involved. I think I was not that forgiving, you know, with their, you know, when something was not going as well or wasn't as well planned, you know, that it does take a village, not just the two people in front or often the one person in front. There is a costume designer, there is a person who has to organize a schedule, a company manager. And as a young dancer, well, at least I wanted to sort of have it handed on a plate, right? And this is when I need to be there, and then things need to be ready, and I'm ready for rehearsal. Why isn't rehearsal starting? Or, oh goodness, I think I would be more understanding now of how things, of all the things that are involved. But you know, you graduate from, let's say, well-oiled institutions like the Hamburg Opera Ballet School and the Juilliard School, and a modern dance company, however famous, is a much smaller, let's say, well, it's a shoestring operation, you know? I mean, come on. I mean, it all sounds very glamorous. And it's wonderful being part of it, but they're, these shoestring operations are influential through their philosophy, through their technique. And I mean, you know, it might not, the real hundreds of companies in New York that are shoestring, you know, they probably don't see something like the Merce Cunningham company or the Alvin Nicolai Murray-Lewis company as shoestring. But if you think about of corporate America, American modern dance, even as its top echelon, is a cottage industry, right? I mean,
yes.
So,
yes. Yeah, I mean, well, let me ask you, what are the other examples you wanted to give in terms of the partnerships?
So, I mean, in the 90s, right? I mean, the American Ballet Theater. Oh, I was not necessarily in love with the repertoire. I mean, how many times can you see Le Corsaire and, you know, not just enough already, right? But, or Don Quixote, or, but if you have couples like Alessandra Ferri and Julio Boca, I mean, of course, they were best in Giselle and Romeo and Juliet. But I mean, whatever they did, you wanted to see, or I wanted to see, because they lived on stage. I mean, it was not about how many times she turned or how high he jumped, and they did everything beautifully, but it was these moments of just true interaction where they completely trusted one another and were able to take risks because of it. Or then seeing Susan Jaffe. You know, I had seen her in the late 80s, and I really thought, oh, what a marvelous dancer. But then Jose Manuel Carreño came and joined American Ballet Theater, and a partnership formed. And Susan, who was a wonderful ballerina, now, there was another level. It was just, to me, iconic then. You know, there was Ferry Boca, there was Jaffe Carreño. And I saw Swan Lake in 1995 and in 1996. I remember these years. And Swan Lake, I mean, I think it's an important, wonderful ballet, and I'd seen it many times. But to see the care, the excitement, the wonderment of exploring one another that Jose and Susan had, that who is this otherworldly being? And she, you know, being informed by his breath behind her and her wings fluttering because for no other reason than him being near her. Magic. I mean, I sat there and I wept. It was so beautiful because it was so, well, honest. It was so immediate. You know, and then you had those young whippersnappers at the time, Paloma Herrera and Angel Correa. And they just blazed across the stage in Don Q, and they took risks, and they just wanted to show everybody what they could do, and they could. So you had these three very different but magic couples in their own way that that I think made me realize, as a young dancer then in the 90s, what partnerships can do to elevate your own dancing.
Sure. And
I think that did a lot. I mean, and now, of course, going back and looking at partnerships, let's stick in the ballet world for one moment. I want to point out, I mean, the class is not just about ballet partnerships, but you know, of course you have Peter Martins and Suzanne Farrell in at New York City Ballet. Right. But coming from Germany, you know, and seeing clips on YouTube now of Marcia Haydé and Richard Cregan, who were instrumental in the Tanzwunder in Stuttgart under choreographer John Cranko. You know, a partnership. I mean, everything was created on them, for them, and these narrative ballets of John Cranko you had by these wonderful dance actors that are iconic in the world of ballet. I mean, Marcia Haydé, Richard Cregan, they were for decades partners that and over time developed this partnership that they could have danced with their eyes closed, right?
Well, look, I saw that you were doing the course, and somehow this resonated with me because I've always understood this notion of partnering. Now, in terms of having opportunity to do it, that's something different, because I think the circumstances have to be the right. It's like the stars aligning, it seems, right? I mean, I'll just say
Right.
there has to be sort of more than one thing aligning. And when it does, everyone that's involved seems to understand it and know it and take it as far. That's when they start to take it as far as they could possibly take it. And I think that's part of the magic of this, of partnering. Yeah. Because, you know, once you figured it out, once everyone's figured it out, that that you can go far, right? You can go far. And it's a matter of, it's not, I wouldn't necessarily call it negotiating. Maybe in the beginning there's negotiation, right? Because you're trying to feel one another out. But after you've laid the tracks down, let's say, of trust and just knowing how to work with one another physically. And this also can happen in business and in movie sets.
I think it is instincts that align.
Yes. Yes.
You know, that I think that's more it in a dance partnership. Yes, of course, there's communication, and even if instincts align, communication is key to keep it growing.
Right.
You cannot just count on it. But I think that has to be there, where you really connect on just this basal level. You know, just you sniff at the same time. You that but I mean it's that physicality, you know, that you share, that or a musicality that you share, you know, where you're both conversing with the music rather than always being on the beat. You know, there is a breath that you take, and your rhythm of breath is when you listen to the music, that you don't land on the beat, but you go a little further and then you catch up and you hold back. And if that is something that you can do together, and that might not happen right away, but if sometimes this inner musicality is aligned with somebody, you know, where some people always respond to music, and they're always just a tiny bit behind. And if you have two responders together, it is a beautiful picture, right? Or if you have two anticipators together, that can be a very exciting, you know. In the end, having two anticipators together or two responders together can be beautiful, but maybe not magic, maybe not iconic. And I think you need people. If you really look at Merce and Richard, or at Rudy and Margot, I think these are people who correspond, who are conversing with the music. And I think that's what makes the magic. And that is what Susan and Jose did as well. And Ferry and Alessandra and Julio. They all have that, a musicality at risk-taking, not just what was learned in school, or follow a natural, well, instinct I don't want to say, but a tendency. I think we all have a tendency to anticipate or respond, but to realize that and make that grow. And if you can do that together, and you are in sync with one another.
Sure.
That is
I get it. I mean, I understand. Give us other examples outside the world of dance that people could relate to, and you could also sort of bring home your point about couples and partnering.
Yeah. Outside of dance altogether, or outside of ballet?
Outside of that, however you see it. I mean, it can be outside of ballet.
Yeah, I mean, look at ice skaters, right? Figure skaters, and I mean, it's also with all these throws, you know, that you have, that there's such a huge trust needed, and I think that even people who don't go see modern dance or ballet, you know, you do watch the Olympics, right? And I think then you get it, what is involved, that there's a lot of time on the ice or in the studio together where you work on that trust, and then it goes beyond the technique. And you know, one of the couples I want to focus on in the class is Taipa Bologna and Randy Gardner.
Sure.
This couple who they sort of came on the international scene in 1976 in Innsbruck, and thanks to YouTube, you can see all this, and the risk that they took.
Sure.
And maybe at that point they just didn't know better, right? They took risk. Yeah. And all of a sudden, I mean, figure skating was not just the that so beautiful harmony of Russian figure skating, Rodnina Zaitsev, but you know, now it was Babilonia Gardner, and they were a threat to that Russian dominance. Yeah. So well, outside of dance altogether, I'm a little unprepared to say that, you know. I mean, painting seems to be such a solitary art. I'm bringing up painting because here I'm in Monet's garden.
Yes. Yes, we see.
So in business, yeah, you have a better sense. You have a better sense of the world of business,
in preparation David. For this, let me tell you. Well, maybe I was trying to prepare for this, but then there were detours here and detours there, right? So there was I happened to be watching a video on Tom Ford, the designer, and his business partner, I think, is Domenico da Sola, and they were responsible for the creation of or the reemergence of Gucci as a top tier. It's always had a top name, but you know, as you know, fashion houses have like ebbs and flows, and so he was responsible for bringing some notoriety to the brand, and so much so that he bought I think it was Yves Saint Laurent. So they worked as a partnership. And Domenico was behind the scenes doing the business, but of course, Tom was out in front, right? But I would also add that when you have a partnership like that, a creative partnership, there's a whole constellation of people around them, right? So as I was doing the research,
good point. Yes.
Yeah, there's a constellation of people. So throughout this documentary, there are the very famous models that you can, you know, I can't remember, a woman named, I think her name is Khalifa so-and-so. She's a French Arab model. She was there. I mean, all of these people that you see in the magazines are somehow floating around, right? So he's pulling from all of these different people, right? And pulling from, another thing that he said was that that it's important to read what's going on in society when you're doing your work, right? So you're not just designing in isolation, right? You really are pulling inspiration, and you're reading from not necessarily the public that, because he also said every person has a different reality, right? And so he literally, I guess, built his own world. Right. So he's it's almost like he's inspired by certain things. He's reading tea leaves, and then together with his business partner, that they come up with plans, and that's how they execute it. Another, let's say, partnership, someone who I did research on this, trying to prepare for this, but it was Debbie Thomas. Now, the reason why I bring up Debbie Thomas is that she was not necessarily someone who was a partner or
Right.
team person, right?
Right. Yes.
She was not a team person. And what I find when I'm watching her do her work, and I know a little bit more about her now because apparently she's hit hard times, right? So she's been married once, twice, and I think she's living in a trailer somewhere in West Virginia somewhere. And like she went to school as a doctor, bankruptcy. So obviously something happened. But when I watch the videos, trying to find the videos for you, but I'm watching her and I'm thinking, you know, maybe she should have taken some partnership classes. Maybe she should have, because what I started to see was everything was about her.
Yes.
Everything, like she went to med school, she went to Stanford, she did all of these things that were so impossible to do. Meanwhile, she's doing this while she's doing figure skate, right?
Oh, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so she did not. In other words, what I'm saying is that you do need a community of people. You do need a true partnership when you're doing these types of high level careers and you have high aspirations. It's never one person. It shouldn't rest on one person's shoulders. You do need to bring other people in and, you know, distribute the pressure or distribute the wealth, however you want to call it. And what I sensed in her, she was even on Ayanla Fix My Life. That's how she called Ayanla. So I'm thinking, here's a woman who was a former world-class professional ice skater, Olympian.
Yeah.
And she's
She
in a
was
trailer
fantastic.
in West.
I'm very sorry to hear that. Yeah.
Right. And so I think I say to myself, this is an example, at least in my eyes, of how I believe, now not everybody gets this, how you have to integrate this this team effort or this partnering effort into a daily regiment when you're trying to achieve, right? And it's really tough because if you're brought up in a culture that's all about individual achievement, right? You somehow lose the plot, but at least some of the people.
Oh, that's a very good point, David. Individual achievement is so, is applauded more than the communal aspect. That's a very good point.
I mean, I know it so well.
We really need to learn just being part of the community and what we can contribute without everybody wanting to be the leader, right? Oof, that's my goodness.
Because not everybody is designed to be the leader. And I think in this day and age, particularly, let's say, when it was years ago, right, when you didn't have much competition for attention, right?
Yeah.
These companies or a lot of them that came out of New York, they had space to develop, even though New York was like bustling. If you wanted to do anything, everyone, if you're an artist, you had to go to New York if you were in the United States, right? Or you went abroad to Europe. But most of the time it was going to New York. Right. There was much more, there's more room back then for people to actually experiment. And there was a community of people already there that you could present your work to. Yeah.
Yes.
I think now, in this sort of internet age, we've lost a bit of it, and you've talked about it in the beginning when you've described how teaching with Zoom versus in person, the difference there, and sort of how that is going to impact the art form and in and of itself. It's to be determined, but you can already see a change in terms of that alone. So I think, I bring this up to say that what you're teaching is really important. I know, at least when I tried to partner and I didn't have the right person who was teaching me how to do it, I flopped, right? So it's all of these different elements.
But I think, of course, for a young dancer also, you have all the insecurities about your own body and, touching now another body. Oh, goodness. So that it really takes time. And and of course, for somebody who doesn't have these inhibitions, it might be easier.
Yeah.
Although, having overcome the inhibitions, you might have a better understanding how to help somebody else overcome them. So,
Yes.
it's you can see it positively in any which way, right?
Yeah, of course. Of course. It's part of what I learned, like, because I started later as a dance, like working with the dance company. I went to college and did all that stuff. But the moment that I was forced to partner with somebody, there was panic. I had panic because
I can understand. Yes.
I'm used to sort of dancing alone and without having to be responsible for anybody in that way. Now I've done it, right? When push comes to shove, I do it, but it's something that the physical part needs a lot of work. What kind of, let's say when you're having the course, I mean, you're talking about this from a historical perspective. Is there anything that you would present that gives you more, not practical because you're in Zoom, right? Or you're limited, even though if this is the first class.
I mean, I'm in the classroom, but it's not in the studio.
Yeah, it's a
studio. It is definitely a lecture course. I mean, will I make people get up at some point and maybe depending, I mean, where we are with COVID too, if we can touch each other by the waist to understand where there is where a certain support needs to be for a pirouette. I mean, in non-COVID times, I would definitely do this. And now I just have to see, during the course of the semester, the next 12 weeks, where it goes, if we can go there or not. I mean, just, use common sense. To bring a little bit of physicality, like I would love to present a finger turn, how is that done? I probably won't be able to do that this semester. In other semesters forthcoming, hopefully we'll be able to be more physical, but at least we can be in the classroom together. And that is already a huge, big, wonderful step.
So tell us when the course starts and give us a little bit of a framework. You just mentioned over the next, 12 weeks, you said?
Yeah. So I have two different options. I'm offering this course really independently. So there's no other entity involved. It's, Henning Rübsam organizes it. That's the first for me. And I'm very excited about it. It gives me a lot more freedom. And therefore, I was able to do a 10-week option and a 12-week option. So naturally, the 10-week option ends the Thursday before Thanksgiving, whereas the 12-week option adds 2 Thursdays after Thanksgiving. So Thanksgiving being a holiday, it's sort of a breath there. And then for the people who want to stick around, there will be 2 wonderful holiday classes in early December before we break. So we're starting now on September 16th. That's a Thursday, and then every Thursday, consecutive Thursdays. And it is going to be from 5:30 to 7. And it's on the west side of Manhattan, so that a Broadway curtain or a Lincoln Center curtain can be made. So I think that is important that, if people go out and see a class, come to my class, that afterwards, if they want to make an evening of it, they have the opportunity to go and see a Broadway show or see a show at Lincoln Center. What I'm very excited about is that that would be our 3rd class on September 30th. It's the opening night of the Denishawn program at the theater at St. John's here on the east side. And I will take my class to that. So it is a program that features work by Ruth St. Denis and Ted Shawn, another iconic dance partnership. They're called the mother and father, really, of American modern dance. And for that program, I'm reconstructing and coaching a piece called Floor Plastique by Ted Shawn. So I'm involved in it as a reconstructor, and then I take the class to the program that features work by these pioneers of American modern dance, who were a couple and who founded the Dennis Shawn School that brought forth choreographers like Martha Graham and Doris Humphrey and Charles Weidman. So a really important element of American modern dance to have Ruth St. Dennis and Ted Shawn be part of that class. So every Thursday, starting September 16th, and there will be free tickets to some events, and other events will be discounted. And the 10 class option is $390. The 12 class option is $440. So of course I want people to stick around there. That's why it's a better deal, right?
Yes.
So and yeah, people should just contact me on where to send the payment. And then because to stay with New York guidelines, I do require a proof of vaccination. That just has to be done. It's a part of the course, right?
Sure.
I mean, you just have to be able to function right now in New York. That's the way it goes.
Well, it's been great catching up with you. I mean, it's really, we're living in very challenging, strange, all kinds of adjectives to describe what's happening. But I think, look, we just got to keep moving, and we got to keep going, and finding a way. I think for people in the arts, this should be what we're going through now, as in the world, right? Should be really sort of part of the course for what we do on a regular basis to move through. Albeit, some of the things that have happened have escalated, right? Our level in order to how do you say, our ability to deal, right? But in terms of the normal sort of going ons as a creative person, you're always trying to find a way, right? As always. You always have to be.
I think you just have to know that everything gets completely politicized, and you have to just keep your common sense and your love for what you're doing.
Yeah.
And that and I am especially thrilled because I have not been able to do what I love to do for the past year and a half.
Sure.
So I'm hungry. I'm eager to get this out there, right? And to make this happen. So
of course.
As I could say, I'm jazzed, right? I'm jazzed really.
Well, look, I'm not going to keep you much longer, but I mean, thank you again. I mean, like literally, look, I've been out of it. I haven't done videos for the last since May or so. So you're now interview number 73, right? I stopped at 72. Yeah, I mean, I was going. Wow. I was going, as they say, ham is harder than a mother. I was going right, like back to back to back to back, and then it got to a point where, in my normal sort of day-to-day life, I had to make a turn. Right, but there were so many things that have been happening, and so many people, so many of you who have already done interviews. Some great things have happened for you, some great developments, and I'm looking forward to getting more of the other people that I've interviewed thus far on, and having a conversation about it as well. It's like, really,
I just really thank you for having me be part of it, and thank you for letting me talk about this upcoming class. I mean, yes, there are still a couple of spots open, and I hope that they will be filled just because of this interview. So thank you, David.
Well, look, let's see. Let's as an exercise. Let's see if we can get the video out to as many people as we can. There are people that I know have watched the video because let's say before closing, I look at the what is it, the analytics, right, day to day, and the great thing about YouTube is it shows you which videos people are watching, and you can be in bed, not really doing a video for months on end, and still those videos are being watched. So I mean, it can only get better, right? It can only get better. And as word of mouth continues to grow, I think only more positive things can happen as a result. Because I don't think anybody's doing what I'm doing at the moment, specifically as specific as I'm doing for people in this area of creators. And I think it's great. So, thank you once again. Is there anything else you want to add before we close? I want to give you the last word.
Oh, I mean, there's so many more wonderful partnerships like the Nicholas brothers or Carmen de Lavallade and Geoffrey Holder. And so it is going to be a class that really, I think, encompasses, if not all the corners of the dance world, a lot of them. Okay. And I think that will keep it interesting for people who, even if you don't know about dance, you get an idea of how rich the dance world is through that specific topics on dance partnerships. And thank you again for having me be a guest.
All right. Take care of yourself, Henning. We will talk soon, okay?
Take care.
Ciao. Bye-bye.
Bye.